Hi everybody, this is Russ, and today I'm going to lecture a little bit about layers and masks. So I'm in my graphics lab in section 3.0 and I'm in the presentation about layers. Now if you have any experience with Photoshop, layers in Illustrator are different. They're really more about organization. However, I'd like to point out to you that you can really confuse yourself using layers too much in Illustrator. Personally, I don't really like to use them. Really, if you're going to do animation, they are very, very useful. Other than that, they can be a way for you to end up losing where you think an object is, having problems with understanding how things are grouped and so forth. And so I think that's something to just keep in mind. Layers can cause you trouble in Illustrator. Okay? So you probably have some familiarity with it already. It has, when you look at the layers panel, there's an eyeball, and it tells you that eyeball tells you pretty simply whether or not something is on. It's called the visibility column, and it's either visible or it's hidden. Okay, and then of course there are some other things like these carets or down arrows, which show you what different parts of the layer are on there. Okay, you can lock layers. Okay, and occasionally you might want to do that if you just don't want something messed with. You've completed part of an illustration, you just don't want it messed with, you can lock the layer. Okay, you can use it to select artwork. This is sometimes helpful when there's a very, very complex illustration. Okay, sometimes things are harder to select directly with the direct selection tool or with the selection tool. Okay, and so you might want to use layers to do that selection. Okay, and moving on, you can create create different layers, which may help you. Okay, and oftentimes layers are automatically created when you create an object. Okay, you can also rearrange them, so simply by grabbing one and moving it. You need to be careful when you do this. However, you can easily move something to a location where you just don't want it. So you've got to think ahead about the layers that you want and how deep you want those layers. Okay, so in addition to that, this week you'll do some work about clipping masks and opacity masks. Okay, now a clipping mask is just like as if you had taken an image, let's say, and you can see here the term clipping mask is showing. Okay, and it's just like you had taken this illustration that's in the background of the letters and gotten out the scissors and clipped. Okay, it's just what a clipping mask is, and it's really pretty straightforward. Okay, now I cannot stress enough that you need to be careful with this week's lesson to watch when you do clipping masks and opacity masks to be sure that you are seeing how things are grouped either before or after you make your mask. It can be very tricky. Okay, so keep that in mind. If you get in trouble, take a look at how grouping is going on. Maybe you need to ungroup something, or you need to group it. Okay, so be careful when you do that. Okay, and so clipping masks are often used like this, where you have an image, okay, and you, for example, want this circle around that image. Okay, that might be one good use of a clipping mask. All right. Also, you can use draw inside to create a clipping mask, but I wouldn't worry about that too much. Okay, the way you do it, of course, is you have your let's say, two objects. In this case, you have the image, okay, and you have the circle, okay, and you have them selected, and you choose clipping mask. Now, keep in mind that what gets clipped depends on which image or object is on top, okay, and so be careful this week as you do that. It matters. So in this instance, you know, you would want this circle on top of the photo so that you end up with an image like this. Okay, that can be a little bit tricky, so please be careful. Okay. All right. Also, there's the transparency panel, and that's something that you might use when you're doing a mask, and it's really pretty straightforward. Once you make the mask, okay, you'll get this preview, okay, where you're able to see what the different parts are of the mask that you created. Think of the mask as being kind of a virtual thing. It doesn't really exist. Illustrator always kind of knows what the parts are, okay, that created your mask, and so this is a good example of that, okay, whereby it knows that there's some different pieces of a mask, okay, and you're going to take part of that and you're going to change the opacity, okay. It's really pretty straightforward, and it's a neat way to do cool effects on graphics, on text, and so on and so forth within Illustrator, okay. Alright, I don't think that this is necessarily the best example, but as you can see, here's the original, okay, here's a clipping mask, and here's an opacity mask, okay. Now, the opacity mask is almost as though they had taken something and made it lighter, okay. And that is something to keep in mind. You can change your opacity mask and the coloring of the opacity mask. So this one appears as though they made the mask, and when they did it, they also put some opacity on that was lighter in color. You can also do it darker in color. Okay, so just keep that in mind, that you also have color control within your opacity mask. Okay, and here is a good example. I know you can't see it too well, it's kind of small, but whereby you have some text, you have a background, and together you create a graphic that has that says opacity mask, for example. This one they have set at 100%, so I don't exactly know why that would be an example of an opacity mask, but just kind of showing you the process that, again, that you have some text, you have an object that has a pattern, and together they become something when you do a mask of them. Okay. Okay. I'm going to touch a little bit on isolation. Okay. Isolation is, isolation mode can be difficult within Illustrator, whereby it is suddenly everything seems grayed out just slightly, and something is selectable but not everything. Well, you know what you would do in that case? Suddenly you have entered isolation mode, and it happens automatically, and it can be kind of dramatic and kind of irritating. And so what you do is you just simply click out in the gray area once or twice, and it will release the isolation mode. Okay, but don't get too upset about it. Okay, well, good luck this week, and let me know if you have any questions. Okay, thanks. Bye.